Production and distribution of City Club forums on IdeaStream Public Media are made possible by PNC and the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland, Incorporated.
Good afternoon, City Club members, students, educators, and community members for joining us today. Welcome to the City Club of Cleveland. My name is Sudhi Ramesh. I'm a senior at Solon High School and the president of the Youth Forum Council. Now today we're here to discuss the arts, Cleveland's cultural DNA. Cleveland's rich history in the arts has been a testament of the city's cultural diversity and resilience. From the industrial boom in the late 19th century to the vibrant resurgence in recent decades, the arts have been a cornerstone of Cleveland's identity. As one explores Cleveland's cultural DNA, you will find a diverse community where a multitude of artistic influences converge, creating a unique and dynamic cultural landscape. It's also important to consider the profound impact of the arts on the city's social and political fabric. The arts serve as a catalyst for dialogue, understanding, and shared experiences, bridging gaps and fostering a sense of community. Our conversation today will delve into how the arts have not only shaped Cleveland's residents, but continue to be a driving force in shaping its future. Our esteemed guest today, Sujata Srinivasan, a founder and artistic director of Sri Kala Mandir Center for Indian Performing Arts, Anthony Tadeo, an established band leader, composer, and percussionist, and Anya Houston, student at Shaker Heights High School and a student participant in Tri-C's Jazz Fest program, explore how the arts are integrated within Cleveland's cultural DNA. Our discussion today will be moderated by Youth Forum Council member Karthik Gulati. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello, my name is Karthik Gulati. I'm a freshman at University School, and today we will be exploring the cultural DNA of Cleveland's performing arts. Today with me, I have Anya Houston, Mr. Tadeo, and Mrs. Srinivasan. Why don't you guys thank you guys so much for being here with us. Why don't you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Hi. I'm Anya. I am a 9th grader at Shaker Heights High School, and for the past year and a half, I've been involved with the Tri-C Jazz Fest play program, and I've always played the violin since like the age of 4, and so I have a deep connection with the arts, and I really enjoy it.
Mr. Tadeo.
I am a drummer, percussionist, and composer in Cleveland. I've been back in Cleveland since 2014, but I studied in New York City and also have a graduate degree from Youngstown State University in composition. And the group that I lead, is a big part of my artistic life right now, is called Alla Boada, and it is a group that seeks to bring life and recognition to Italian folk music.
Hi, my name is Sujata Srinivasan, and I am an Indian classical performer of Bharatanatyam and Indian classical dance. I've been living here in Cleveland, Strongsville for about 30 years now. I teach, perform, collaborate, and present new work. And I live with my husband and 2 children. And dance is my passion.
So I've been part of the arts. I've been acting since a very young age, and I can say I just kind of grew into it and experienced it. So I was just wondering, what was the first really engaging / positive experience that got you hooked into the arts? So we can go around.
Yeah. So ever since I was an infant, I was brought along to my older sister's violin lessons, and I've always loved attending Heights Youth Theater productions or productions at Playhouse Square, and singing and just being involved in the arts. And I think really I started with violin, and I think it kind of grew from there.
I think the first time I started really interacting with the arts was when I was little, I started tap dancing when I was 5. And so getting to do that was a really cool way to kind of get involved in the arts. And then as time progressed, I feel like there were different moments that kept inspiring me to develop my voice as an artist and to find new things to incorporate. And now that I'm a professional, it feels like there are still moments that inspire you and continue to grow and want to interact with the arts.
I was initiated into dance by my mother, who wanted to be a dancer, and learned under great masters. And the positive experience was being in the den of where music and the temple art forms were created and were pursued by great masters. And right early in my childhood, I was drawn towards dance, and it always inspired me. And by the time I think I was in high school, I thought this was what I should do for the rest of my life. So I've been always enthusiastic about dance, and also wanted to share it with others, the joy I feel while I dance.
So, as Mr. Tadeo said earlier, that like you're always constantly getting inspired. Like, what has been like one thing that has like, what's your favorite art experience or an art project that you've done, like that has stuck with you, and that, yeah.
I think for me, the summer after 7th grade, I first got involved, and I learned about the Tri-C Jazz Fest program. And I originally only heard about the summer program, which is about 2 weeks. But after that first summer, I learned about the year program, the Saturday program, and ever since then I've been involved. And I think jazz is something that is just, it really inspired me. It's so beautiful, and I think it incorporates so many different genres of music and so much into it that I think that was something that was really, really meaningful for me.
What do you think?
It's okay.
Yeah. I think one thing about being inspired about to keep doing your art form, something that's really important is kind of understanding what it is about art that is most meaningful to you. Because I think that if you are just basing your desire to learn and get better at art in art because it's just fun or it makes you feel good, I think those are good things to kind of get you started, but those aren't necessarily things that are going to last a really long time, because it doesn't always feel good, and you don't always feel awesome when you're performing or when you're doing things. There are ups and downs in your artistic journey. So I think for me, the reason why I keep getting inspired is because for me, what I've realized is that art is a means to relationship and community with other people. And so when I'm taking that pressure off of myself to always find fulfillment in my personal creation of art, and then I'm putting my focus on how am I creating more relationships, how am I creating more community through my art, then I feel much more inspired to create, because it's not all on me and it's not all based on my personal performance, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense to me.
I think it's a beautiful thought, and I would reiterate that while we are on our professional, personal journey, I think what the favorite part of my journey was collaborating with people, sharing my art, and also finding common ground between artists who are from different genres. I have worked with native Indian storytellers like my friend Robin Peace, or an African drummer, Mama Fasi. And also I did some programs on unity, harmony, and how to highlight how we can all find a common voice through the language of music and dance. Those kind of collaborations not only enhanced me as an artist, because eventually, yes, the audience got to enjoy an end product like a program or a performance, But during the collaboration, during the process of creating, while that is happening, we make mistakes, we may fail, we may kind of come up with new ideas. So that process of integrating and interacting with other artists was so enriching, because ultimately we found that we might come from different backgrounds, we might come from different ethnicities and countries, but the language of art was one and the same, and the riding passion beneath the whole process was just love for the arts. So that was a very enriching experience that I always look forward to.
And it's a great thing you brought up community and collaboration, because that just makes me wonder, like, how can we, like artists, like actively engage with Clevelanders or just people in general that are looking forward to getting into art? Like, how can we make sure they start to find their passion in art? Like, how can we actively engage with them? So, yeah, any thoughts on that?
How do you engage with youth?
Yeah, how would you engage with like youth or just people in general for like arts and like collaboration?
I think you have to find your voice as an artist and figure out how we can create kind of bridges and connections to people that might not know much about what you're doing. For instance, we both have projects that are really specific to our cultural heritage. And you mentioned it when we were talking before, that sometimes that means to help people understand what you're doing, it takes a conversation. It takes having them understand a little bit so that they can now appreciate everything that you're performing or everything that you're showing them. And I think in the arts sometimes, it's really incredible to create art for artists, for instance, right? We like modern art where we're expressing ourselves. That's amazing, and we should do that. But if we're not figuring out ways to bridge that gap and connect with the people that are trying to experience the art, then sometimes they don't understand it, and it leaves them not really being able to connect with what we've created. So I think in Cleveland, you've got to look around at the landscape that we have, and you've got to think about what are the types and styles of music that people are listening to? What are ways that I can create something that's still based on something that's really important to me, but then also has an aspect to it that invites people to have interplay with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you want to add anything to that, or just good for that?
Pardon me?
Would you like to add anything to that? So,
I think connecting, as he said, is very important. And also because we bring in a different art form, which might be totally foreign to the audience here. Seeking ways to communicate it in a very accessible manner, was an important part of how I presented my art. Sometimes I engage like explanations or dialogues or ways to explain what the dance is about, so that the audience are able to have the experience I want them to have. A couple of programs that I did on the climate change or immigration or women's issues. While the dance was very traditional and it had all the vocabulary which was very foreign to the audience, I added a new element of a narrator. I added elements of explaining it with a PowerPoint that kind of came along the dance, so that people were able to easily understand what we are trying to communicate, and we were very successful in getting good audience appreciation. So that kind of connectivity with the message was very important, and I think that paved the way for the bringing the people who are foreign to the whole art form closer to us.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So I'm gonna shift to like a student perspective, so Anya can like talk about that. How have you been able to like engage with art? Or like how did, I guess what I'm trying to say is like how would did your teachers help you connect to arts? Like, that's what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, I think I have been so fortunate to grow up in an environment and with a community that is very involved in art, and I've had so many opportunities. And I think, as you guys were saying before, like it's a really powerful point that art is such an incredible means for both self-expression, but also communication. And I think as students and as a younger generation, that is something that it needs to be so core to connecting. And I think, like, moving forward, art is something that really can shine through and really help us to work together.
And so, like, what has been your experience as, like, a student, like, engaging in arts in Cleveland, and, like, what are some specific barriers that you've faced?
Yeah, I think, as I said before, I think I have been so fortunate in the opportunities I've had at hand, but I know that's not true for everyone, and for especially for people, and especially for young people that don't necessarily have a foundation in the arts. I think it's really important through, yes, school, but through, like, the greater community to, you know, make it clear that, like, you don't need to have prior experience to get involved in art, and like, unlike necessarily sports where it's kind of inherently competitive, art is inherently collaborative, and I think that's something that's super beautiful. And so I think really highlighting that and making that clear to people is a great way to share art.
And as teachers, like you two, like, how do you help students, like, overcome challenges, their barriers? Like, how do you, like, help them with that, like, kind of, like, barrier that they get?
In the process of learning?
Yeah, in the process of learning.
So students have, personally, the students that come to me are from different ethnicity. I mean, they're all mostly from India. And some of them have a little background of the dance and music. Some of them don't. What I do is offer them a wholesome art form where I teach them not only the technique, but also the history, the story behind all the content that I teach, and also make them aware of all the nuances. Dance cannot exist without music, and the dance form Bharatanatyam is a very visual art form of the vocalized music, and the rich content that it portrays with various stories need a lot of background. So I help them by initiating them to understand what they are performing, because a lot of storytelling goes with the rhythmic movement that is incorporated in Bharatanatyam. So to make them aware of that, I help them read. I just give all the background information that helps them to become a better dancer.
That's
I think with music, there's different skill sets that you want to try to help students learn, so that, because ultimately what we want to do as teachers, I think, is inspire people enough so that they can learn how to teach themselves moving forward, because you won't always necessarily have a teacher. You'll have moments of mentorship throughout your entire career, but at some point you also need to learn how to keep the study going and how to continue diving into your art by yourself, right? And find the things that really inspire you. So I think for me, the biggest things are, okay, I got to figure out how to help inspire students to understand why these certain aspects of music are important. You know, why are we going to sit here and practice scales? Why are we going to sit here and practice drum rudiments? Mm-hmm. There are reasons why. Yeah. And I can show you examples. And then I also want to teach students how to listen, because that is, unfortunately, a skill that has really been diminished over the last 50 plus years. Listening is hard. It's not always easy, but through listening, and critical listening in particular, right? That's like really picking apart something that we're listening to, understanding what's happening and why it's happening. Through those types of skill sets, we can then develop what we need to so that we can start teaching ourselves and we can start consuming art and ideas at such a higher rate, because now we kind of understand a little bit more of where it's coming from.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. Anya, do you want anything to add?
Yeah, I think that definitely art can be uncomfortable, especially when you're performing, whether it's singing or dancing or whatever it may be. But I think it can be really uncomfortable, and you're putting yourself out there, and that makes you vulnerable. And I think really enjoying that process. I remember something you said at the Jazz Fest program, to really enjoy the process of learning, because you only get to learn it once and then you know it. And so really being able to just really enjoy that process and let yourself be uncomfortable sometimes, and that can be hard, but it's important.
Yeah. So, like, speaking from uncomfortability, obviously, Ms. Srinivasan, you came here from India 30 years ago, and you moved here. And I know that you went to Italy, and you came back here in 2014. And so, like, how was your experience, like, integrating or like adapting to this new environment, and like in a moment of uncomfortability, as like Anya said, like what drove you and kept you going? And
You want to go first?
When I came to this country, I was a very well-established solo performer back home in India. So the new scenario was where, when I came in, there was not an established performance opportunity here. So I had to readapt myself to the new landscape. Fortunately for me, I was invited to be a roster artist of the Center for Arts-Inspired Learning, which used to be called Young Audiences. I'm sure many of you have had professional artists come over to your schools as teaching artists. We are all professionals in our own field, but we come and teach with the curriculum as art education. And that opened my eyes to how students perceive art and how education and art can be integrated together. That opened up a new path for me to see how I can go back to my roots and resell or repackage my message as a dancer and offer it in a new way. So it helped me to grow as an artist, to rethink about what I'm doing, rather than just offering what I create and then present as a dancer. The second thing that helped me was to, whenever I performed at places like the Cleveland Museum of Art or any of the organizations here, there was a need to bring in the traditional art form as one of the programs for diversity. And new audiences were very eager to receive that kind of a performance where they saw something totally new. And my dance form has a lot of beautiful components, like the rhythmic part, the expressive part, the costume, and all the content that comes along with it. So when people are trying to understand that, I had to retell my story in a way that people understood that. So I adapted myself to make it very easy to understand for the audience. And it was a beautiful experience because people were very open, and major organizations like the Playhouse Square or the Cleveland Public Theater or Dance Cleveland, they were all open to offering these kind of programs where they featured dancers or artists from different genres. And I learned a lot by watching others from different countries. At the same time, I was also able to offer this traditional art form to a wider audience.
Well, I don't know if my time in Italy and coming back to the U.S. was long enough for me to necessarily have this transition of sorts. But between living in New York and Italy, that was, I think, combined, going from that and then coming back to Cleveland and thinking, oh, now my career is going to be done or so different because we're in Cleveland and maybe there aren't as many performance opportunities. But I was really wrong. I'm happy to say that, because when we came back here in 2014, what I started to realize is that in Cleveland right now, there's a really special thing happening where so many people are either moving back or staying in Cleveland and creating things on such a high level that hasn't really been achieved in a long time. And so it's like a bit of a renaissance that we've been in these last 10 to 15 years, and it's been incredible to be a part of that. I think one thing that makes this city really interesting and really kind of stand out is, like, if you go to New York, for instance, you kind of have to ride the wave of what already is happening there. There's no, like, just showing up to New York and be like, hey, I'm changing the art scene here. You know what I mean? You don't have that voice there just because of the plethora of voices that are coming out there. But in Cleveland, what's beautiful is that you have an opportunity to make a really great impact here and create something. You might not be able to ride the wave the same way you would be able to in another bigger city, but you have the opportunity to create something for the future, to put your stamp on the art scene here and say, hey, 10 years from now, me doing all this work is going to make a big difference here. And that's something that's really, really special. I will say my caveat would be there is also great importance in you spending some time outside of Cleveland and understanding the art scene in other places, because it gives you a better perspective of what we need to grow and become like some of these other cities and continue to really, put a stamp out there that, like, hey, Cleveland has an incredible art scene.
Yeah, it's like a place where your voice can be heard.
Yeah.
For everything. And
I want to add a little to what he said. I truly agree about that. Cleveland is special. It's vibrant, and just like he said, you can't change a scene like as in New York or whatever. But I think there is a lot of freedom. That's what I felt when I presented new work at the Cleveland Public Theater. The freedom that they gave me to explore any subject that I wanted, or if I had to change midway and then say, hey, I changed my mind, this didn't work, I'm going to offer a new topic. So that kind of artistic freedom was very, very important to me. And finally, the outcome was very, very meaningful to me. When for instance, I started on a project wanting to do something about Earth, and then finally it kept changing as I was working. And then finally what I presented was on climate change and conserving the resources that we have, sustainability, and the individual responsibility as a citizen of the world to save the Earth. So where I started and where I ended up was really, really different, but the freedom that I had to create that work was amazing. So that is there in Cleveland, and I love that about Cleveland.
It's a great point. Great point.
Like, art is so powerful, and Cleveland is definitely one of the best places to do that. There's so many places like Caramel House. It's the oldest African-American theater in the country. There's so many good programs, and I just urge everybody to use those programs, those opportunities to get involved, because as Mr. Tadeo said, it's not like New York where you just have to ride the wave. Everybody has that option, their own voice. So, yeah. And Anya, would you like to add anything?
I mean, I think Cleveland is a beautiful place. I've always loved Cleveland, and I definitely agree. Like, I mean, I've always lived in the Cleveland area, so I mean, I haven't had experience in other places, but I think it has really provided me with so many opportunities, and I think in a lot of other places you don't necessarily get access to all the opportunities out there, or there's waiting lists or whatever. At Cleveland, you can really explore the options, and it's so welcoming, and it's a really beautiful community.
And that's just, it's a great place to be. So we're gonna open it up for questions. Nathan Callahan.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nathan Callahan, and I'm a junior at Hawkins School. Today, we've been enjoying a youth forum panel discussing the arts, Cleveland's cultural DNA, featuring Sujatha Srivan, founder and artistic director of Sri Kala Mandir Center for Indian Performing Arts, Anthony Tadeo, established band leader, composer, and percussionist, and Anya Uston, student Shaker Heights High School, moderating today's conversation. Moderating today's conversation has been Youth Forum Council member Kartik Gulati. We're about to begin the Q&A, and we would like to welcome questions from everyone, City Club members, students, educators, or those of you joining us via our webcast. We ask that your questions be brief, to the point, and end in a question mark. If you're joining us via webcast, we would like to ask you, and would like to ask a question, text us at 330-541-5794, and we'll ask as time allows. Holding today's microphone is one of our Youth Forum Council members, Zoe. So to kick us off, let's have our first questions for the panelists come to Zoe.
You've already I think, referred to this, but please tell me exactly what potential do immigrants and refugees have to really affect the art scene here?
I think there's a lot. As we said this before, there's so many programs, there's so many places. But ask Ms. Srinivasan because she has like the most experience in this. So,
Want to think about it?
Yeah, I mean, the one real experience that has happened to me very recently is I was able to partake in this program called the AMA Academy, which is American Musicians Abroad. And they brought in people from all over the world to Cleveland to collaborate on music together. And some of the people that they invited to that were Ukrainian refugees. And there were actually a total of 8 of the participants were some of these Ukrainian refugees. And most of them are currently in Cleveland. And I was able to meet one of the musicians was a violinist, and it just so happens that I've been looking to collaborate with a violinist in our project. And so we got connected there, and immediately there's opportunity for her now. She already has a couple shows booked with us. So I think there's tremendous opportunity for refugees and immigrants here because, again, I just think that it's easier to be found. It's easier to make connections. The point that you both made about community is really poignant to me because that's one thing that also sticks out. Because there's less competition, it's less about competition and it's more about creating community. When I think about the music scene and particularly the jazz scene, I think of a family of people, and that's what motivates me. That's what made me want to start doing that music in the first place, was experiencing that family.
I totally agree. I've seen Cleveland Public Theater incorporate new programs, especially with a lot of diverse themes and incorporating issues that are happening around the world as subjects for new themes. Actually, right now there are a lot of programs that they've been featuring, producing Mazarala, and there are a couple of theater productions that you're doing. So opportunities are there, and as he said, just artists have to look out and be passionate about it, and also approach the right organizations to see if it's viable for them.
yeah, and I think at the end of the day, it's up to you to decide whether you want it or not. I'm not an immigrant, but one major point I can say is that all arts have this like family behind it. I've been acting for a long time, and I can tell you every production I've been in, every film, everything I've been in, there was always this like family. So if you're an immigrant and you're looking for some place, some programs, or you just want to be part of something, the arts is always a great place because there's always a family. You know.
Hi, I'm Sudi, and I'm a senior at Solon High School. So you all talked a lot about how your inspiration for the arts impacted Cleveland's like entire art sphere, and I'm just wondering what inspirations you've gotten from Cleveland, whether it's the people, the diversity, or the existing like art situation, and how that impacted your practice as either like a teacher, a performer, or a student.
Can you repeat your question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering how you think Cleveland as a city has impacted or has adapted to your practice as an artist.
As an artist, I think it gave me plenty of opportunities to share my art. As an art educator, it helped me to go into schools and realize the connection between how to share art with children at a very young age. Because I think when you teach them academics, yes, they are going to probably look for a job, but if you teach them arts, I think you give them a life skill where they can express themselves. And when they express themselves, I think it's an opportunity for them to get emotional well-being, critical thinking, and also an opportunity to think outside the box to solve problems. And also, I think it gives them an opportunity to not just go into, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an engineer, but also I want to be an artist. I want to create some social change. I want to impact somebody's life. For instance, I derive a lot of joy by just sheer teaching when a child who comes to me to learn is absolutely ignorant and doesn't know ABCD about dance, and then finally, down the year, she becomes a beautiful dancer. That gives me immense joy to see that I have brought out some potential in that child, and they're able to express themselves very well, and they see a different part of themselves flowering and blossoming. So that is something that that often schools don't actually teach, but artists can develop that. And when they have that opportunity for self-expression, I think it makes them a wholesome person for their life. So I think art in that manner is very important, and I value that a lot.
Yeah, on what you said, I think when you get involved with art, you assume the role of a creator, and I think that carries through so many aspects of life. As a student, yes, but I think in every way, because it opens your eyes to see opportunities, and I think that's true for anyone who really participates in art, and I think that's something that's super beautiful about it.
Yeah, I think in particular, Cleveland has helped me to have a greater influence in my community, and that's something that is just invaluable here. I find that, you know, if, for instance, this is a small example, when people, sometimes there are national artists that are touring through Cleveland and they need a band, okay, to play behind them. And I am sometimes fortunate enough to get that phone call. That is not a phone call that I would get in many other cities. But because I'm known as being a professional jazz drummer in Cleveland, and there aren't 500 of those, I have the immense privilege and fortune to get to interact with artists that are really, really incredible. And that's just one small way that, you know, I'm able to have a bigger impact than I would anywhere else, and I think that's really special.
Yeah, Cleveland to me is like a melting pot of cultures, and as I've said before, there's just a lot of programs that are from different cultures or different fields or areas, and like that availability that I've had that Cleveland's offered me is just a way that I've grown as an actor. So, yeah.
Um, Hi, my name is Judah Hunter. I'm from Cleveland Heights. So my question is, how can model art help our community with technology, and how can I contribute? Because I'm an artist myself.
How can art, say the first part of the question again?
Well, the first part is, how can model art with technology help our community, and how can I contribute? Because I'm an artist myself.
You say modern art?
Yeah, and with
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, art is a human expression. It's super important. It helps the community because it shows the community that it's a valid option, that it's something that's important. When we create art and when we continue to push ourselves to be better artists, we are showing that there's importance to it and that it is a valid contribution to society. If we don't have people, this is another thing too, I think, if we don't have people that learn how to even just appreciate art, that's so important. I get people, we even had this conversation in the green room, right? I get people that come up to me at gigs all the time. They're like, listen, I'm not an artist, but I really enjoyed your show. And it's like, no, that's even better, because like if,
You need an audience.
if you weren't out there supporting the art, I wouldn't have anyone to play to. So yeah, does that answer that question a little bit, do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, especially for younger people, technology is playing a very, very large role in our lives. And so I think it's just another medium. And sometimes technology can help to spread art and can help to share art. And so I think that's one way that they really interact and work together.
Really.
Hi, my name is Ria Verma, and I'm also a senior from Solon High School. My question is, how did you decide to pursue your respective art forms professionally, and how has that transitioned from it being a personal hobby to a career for you?
If I may, I'm not a professional. I'm still a freshman in high school. But I guess like just growing up around it, one person who got me into it was Tom Cruise. After watching Mission Impossible, that kind of got me in it. But yeah, it's honestly, that's what got me into it. Even though I'm not a professional, I'm hoping to be one day. So, yeah.
Go ahead.
For me, I think I was initiated into it by my parents who wanted, I think in India it's very common for children to be offered to learn music or dance at a very young age. They just think it's, makes them a wholesome person and to appreciate life better. So I was fortunate enough to be initiated like that. And then I think I liked what I was doing. And I think I was a pretty good student to follow all the rules and learn it. But pretty much I became very passionate about it very early in my life. And I think by the time I hit high school, this is all I wanted to do. And I made it a point to learn all the allied arts of percussion, vocal music, and some languages, and equip myself so that I can shine as a dancer. And I didn't want to become a teacher very early on. I wanted to perform, I wanted to learn more. But marriage brought me to Cleveland, and then I started to see there was a vacuum here to fill, and many people were interested in learning and knowing about the art form. So I started teaching, and then I found that I loved teaching too. So that kind of, put a boost to my passion. And ever since I've been doing performances, teaching, and collaborating. So it has been a very positive experience for me. It is hard. It is it's not an easy journey, but once you keep at it, because unlike sports or even sports, I think you need physical hard work. But for art, you need a longer vision. You cannot start learning at 6 and say, I want to perform at 10. You need to be in it for a longer time. It's very easy to lose your focus and not see anything happening for a long time. But you have to be in it for quite some time to be a perfect artist and be able to sustain yourself without losing your passion.
For me, when I was in high school, I was involved in probably way too many things. Maybe some of you guys can understand that. And I started to realize as it was drawing closer to figure out what I wanted to do with college and things like that, that I needed to figure out really where I wanted to focus, because I didn't want to be just kind of good at all these different things. I wanted to really start focusing on one of these passions and making it the focus of my career. So what I started to realize is that music was at the center of all of it. And in particular, I loved playing the drums. And I remember a very specific moment where I saw a video of a famous jazz drummer. His name is Roy Haynes. If you don't know who that is, you should check him out. And he was performing, he does this still yearly. He was performing his yearly birthday show at the Blue Note in New York City. And he was 87, I think, at that time. Now he's like, well, no, maybe he was like 83. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He was in his 80s and he was playing the drums. And I was like, wow, that is the kind of relationship I want with my career, to be able to still be enjoying it and loving it for the entirety of my life. That sounds incredible.
I mean, obviously, I'm not a professional, but I think, you know, from a very young age, I was involved in a lot of different art, and I was often performing at a violin recital or singing or in a theater production. But I think really when I got to jazz, as we've been talking a lot about community, I really do think it was the community that there's so many people from, you know, the greater Cleveland area, so many people my age that are interested in and passionate about jazz just like me. And I think that was something that really, that's something that drives me to keep learning and keep going even when sometimes it's difficult.
Hi, my name's Amir Odin I'm a freshman in Cleveland Heights High School. My question is, the arts can be mentally fulfilling during challenging times like the one we've been through. So I wanted to know, how would you go about branching out to a student like me to go find their art and keep pursuing it?
Specifically, like what part of the arts? Like you're saying?
Just finding what arts they're into or how to pursue their art.
Yeah, I do think that some of that takes a little bit of something that we're all really uncomfortable with these days, which is time by ourselves without our phones. I think we have to think. We have to sit down and think without distraction. And that's almost like taboo these days. It's so rare. I do think that's a really important part of the artistic journey is self-reflection and taking time, literally setting time aside to sit down and think without distractions. It's really hard to do right now. It's incredibly hard to do. It takes a lot of planning. It takes a lot of, actual effort to make that happen. But I would say that's really, to me, that's the start of it. Because if you love the arts, think about why you love the arts. Think about what motivates you to want to create. And think about how it makes you feel and what it's going to help lead you to. You know what I mean? Do you want it to lead you to being famous? Maybe that's not a great reason to do the arts, because so few people wind up in that situation. It could be cool, I don't know. But to me, that's not what it's about. And I find that the only reason that I've been able to find fulfillment in the arts and kind of how I'm pursuing it is because I've taken a lot of intentional time to think about it. Meditate on that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, intent is obviously one thing. Obviously, I'm not a teacher, but one thing that I learned from my mom because she's doing a lot of leadership work and she is a teacher, is that don't try your hand at different things, and like if you like really like one thing, stick with that and like make and keep working at it. That's what I learned, but don't just keep doing everything. Like try and find it, and try and find it, and yeah, you'll find it. Cause yeah, and or if you're inspired by someone, try what they're doing, and then if you enjoy that, then go ahead and do that. Or if you don't, then there's always something out there to find. So it's never too late to start art.
I think both what they said is, whatever they said is very true and important, but I think when we grew up, or at least me, I can speak for myself, we did not have, leave alone a cell phone, maybe a phone, and the television, those things came later. So, and also we did not have to pursue robotics plus DIY, DYI, and model UN and speech and debate and. Yeah. So we just had one or two things that we pursued as an extracurricular activity. And we pursued it in a manner in which we wanted to become the best, instead of being best in 4 or 5 different activities. If you're able to, I think you all have the beautiful opportunity here to try different things in terms of sports and academics and extracurricular activities. But I think, personally speaking, as a parent, I think I want to expose my children to all these different opportunities, but at one point I want them to decide which is the most important club they want to be in, which is the most important one art form or one sports that they want to do. Because learning an art form or pursuing a sport, if you're going to spend 1 hour learning it, you have to put in at least 5 hours for homework. Just like you put in homework for your studies. If I teach a student once a week for 1 hour, I expect her to put about 3 to 5 hours of personal time before I see her the next time.
Oh.
So art is like a pickle. You just soak in it and soak in it, and so that you become one with it before you can share it and offer it to somebody. So being, having your foot in so many activities and not being good in any one of them is not good. So I think this generation, as he said, has so many distractions. So if they can decide at one point, like before he hit high school, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to cut down on all these things. Yes, you might have to sacrifice something, but eventually you have to decide, going by your inner voice, what you want to do.
Yeah, that like choose, and then like at one point you have to pick it, and then you just have to keep going. So
I think, yeah, like I completely agree. And at the same time, I think there is something to be had. There is beauty in just being able to appreciate art and not necessarily having to dedicate everything or a ton to, because, there's a lot asked of us sometimes. And I think if you really want to pursue something, that is very important. But if you just want to be able to enjoy it and just be able to have that beauty in your life, that's okay too. Mm-hmm. It's not all or nothing.
Good afternoon. This is a wonderful topic. My brother and I were talking the other day, and he's a lover of classical music. And he was sharing that when he was in school, students would ask him, what's your favorite song? And he would say Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. And they would laugh at him. And so my question is really to Anya, but can be the rest of you too. Did you experience any negativity from your peers as you were pursuing your passion? And if so, how did you deal with that?
Yeah, so I think I've always been like one of the loudest people in the room. I love telling people about what I'm doing and how interesting it is, and that's not always shared among everyone. To what you said, it's actually kind of funny because for years, if someone asked me like what's my favorite song or something, I would say Shostakovich 8. But I think and in jazz, like I get so excited about it. And I also participate in Scouts BSA, and I'd go to my Scout troop and I'd be like, don't you guys love jazz? Like, isn't it awesome? Like, oh my gosh. And they were like, ew. So I think there is definitely, you're not always going to share your passions with everyone. Not everyone's going to feel the same way. But I think having a way of expressing that and being able to share that with the people that really do feel the same way has been something that's been meaningful for me. And I think, as I said before, that's why really getting involved with the jazz community at Tri-C was so meaningful, because I found those people. I found the people that were passionate like I am.
That's right.
If you like it so much, don't care about what others say. Because I've been told, oh, acting is weird or doing theater is weird. Well, I don't care, because I like it, so I'm not going to think about what others are saying. So I know that's not music, but still. It just goes to anything you do, sports, arts, whatever it is. If you like it enough, just block out the haters and then just keep working at it. So
Block out the haters.
there you go.
I mean, I think one thing we would all agree on is that it's really important to find community in those passions. So maybe you don't find that in your immediate school, but through these different organizations that we're all talking about, you can find those communities, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, I'm not a weirdo. There are other people my age that like this stuff. And that's really comforting, but it also pushes you to learn more about it. It pushes you to be better at it, and that's really special too.
We're all weirdos. So I'm Jason Tout. I teach in Cleveland Metropolitan School District at MC Squared STEM High School. I like to give my students choice. So I'm going to give you guys 2 questions. You can pick one, or both. My first question is, just as a teacher, I'm always looking for opportunities or organizations that work with high school students. If you guys have any recommendations for something to try to get students involved in, or just to put in front of them, please share with us. That's the easy one. The harder question, I think, is I'm still half-baked in my own brain, so I'll try to get it out succinctly. We're really struggling as a nation right now in terms of this rift politically between left and right. And I really love a lot of the things you guys have said about music as an opportunity to collaborate, and I believe heal and express yourself and connect with others in a non-competitive format. And I guess I'm curious, from your experiences and or ideas, how can we use the arts to try and create opportunities for people with disparate ideas and thoughts and life experiences to come together and work collaboratively on a project or on something that would allow them to connect and see the humanity in what they currently consider the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
That's a great question.
The arts?
Forgot the first question.
Yeah, I think one thing that stands out to me, just based on some of the stuff that we talked about today, is that collaborating is so important, because in our collaborations, and these, especially in cross-cultural collaborations, cross-socioeconomic collaborations, that we begin to see more of each other a little bit clearly, because we're not so focused on what our differences are. We're more focused on what is bringing us together. And so I think that to me is huge. That's when I've learned the most about humanity, is when I'm collaborating with other people that are different than me, and I get to see a little bit of where their struggles are. I get to see a little bit about the things that they're passionate about. And then I start to realize how different their experience is in the same community, maybe in just a different part of town, yet they're living completely different lives. And that's something that I don't get to witness unless I put myself in a position to collaborate with those people, to have discussions with those people. Because we're not getting together to have a debate. we're coming together to figure out how we can create together. And that already brings down the defense. You know what I mean? That already is starting from a place of mutual respect, because we're both saying, hey, you've got some things that are really amazing that I don't understand, and maybe I have some things that are pretty cool that you don't understand. How do we communicate about these things?
Thank you all for joining us at the City Club for our Youth Forum Council panel on the arts, Cleveland's cultural DNA. Thank you again to our panelists for taking the time out of their busy schedules to be with us today, and Kartik Gulati for moderating today's discussion. I would like to recognize all the schools that we have represented in the room one last time: Solon High School, MC Squared STEM High School, Cleveland Heights High School, University School, and Hawkins School. We would also like to thank our sponsors, Nordson, the George W. Cordington Charitable Foundation, AT&T, Martha Holden Jennings Foundation, and the Doris C. Milchick Trust for your continued support of the Youth Forum Council. If you enjoyed today's forum, we invite you to join us for our next forum on February 15th on the importance of urban development. Educators, if you're interested in bringing your students for future forums or are interested in your students participating in the Hope and Stanley Edelstein Free Speech Essay Contest, which closes on February 16th, please email arianasmith@cityclub.org. That brings us to the end of today's forum. Thank you to our panelists, students, and City Club attendees. The forum is now adjourned.
For information on upcoming speakers or for podcasts of the City Club, go to cityclub.org.
Production and distribution of City Club forums on IdeaStream Public Media are made possible by PNC and the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland, Incorporated.